Happy hump day, ladies and gentlemen. Courtney is coming on today to talk about hump day. No, she's not. She's going to talk about a lot of other stuff, but primarily how to get y'all to start thinking about realistic goals and expectations so that you don't get disappointed on your fitness and nutrition journey, because a lot of folks do not have accurate or realistic expectations. And the reality is that can that can hold them back.
We're here. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
What's up? I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yes, I think so.
You ready to spit some truth and some knowledge at people? Okay. So I'll bait you on a couple of questions first, and then we'll get into more of some free flow about stuff like realistic expectations. But I've been doing a thing where I've been kind of making statements,
Okay.
and I have people
I'm here for it.
Disagree and then explain why. So, cardio is essential for fat loss. Agree, disagree, or why?
I've gone through it personally, and ultimately it comes down to yes, it's so much more than calories in versus calories out, but if you can do it in other ways, you don't have to. You can lose weight or be in a deficit by just adjusting your nutrition, and you don't have to do cardio. Does it help? Yes. Do we love it? No.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, why would you want to do more work if you
like friends and colleagues and clients and stuff before? I'm like, okay, if you had the choice, like if you had to be in a deficit, would you rather just eat less food or like consume less or expend more? Like ultimately, that's kind of what it comes down to, right? A lot of people say they would rather do like add in cardio than stop eating so much. And I'm like, yeah, and they don't realize how much
they don't realize how much
like
more
just
cardio
making
they
smart
would have to
adjustments.
do.
It's like you can do that so easily. Yeah, people don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen. So another question is, you have to get 8 or 10 hours. Well, not more of a statement.
No, but it's definitely encouraged. Recently, I was kind of on the much shorter end. Obviously, like being in prep for so long, like majority of the last year, and it would start to like down regulate, and I was getting like 5 to 6 hours. And it's funny because I was like, oh my God, like I'm not getting enough sleep. But I wasn't tired throughout the day. I wasn't taking naps. My mental clarity like wasn't down or anything. My training performance was still good. And I don't know, I think it goes in like ebbs and flows. But if someone is like chronically tired, then yeah, you are gonna need more sleep. I think it's very, very individualized. But I do think a general 6 to 8 hours, for, like generally speaking, is probably one of the best. Yeah.
I like 6 to 8 hours. It's a lot more realistic. So let's switch gears and let's talk about aesthetic expectations. And I think most of our clients come to us with the idea that they want to appear leaner. Most people are striving to look better naked. I mean, that's probably why most people would start eating a certain way or training a certain way. How do you help people with those?
It's such a broad question, such a big question. So it's the first thing that I do is kind of assess where they are, like in reality, lifestyle habits, where they've been over the last couple of years, and then figure out where their goal is and kind of like how far basically that goal is, and getting a really good idea of what this goal really looks like to them. If they've ever achieved it before, what was required. If they've never achieved it before, how do we know what this goal looks like? One thing that I do really like is, so my competitions are very, very separate from my business. I think we just cut out. Can you still hear me okay? Um, so like my competitions are very separate, but what I do really like is I'm able to have a better understanding and give clients a better understanding of the contrast and what is required to look a certain way, especially when girls come to me and they're like, I want to look like a competitor, but I don't want to compete. It's like, no, you don't want to do that because this is what's required. So getting a really good understanding of where they are in their lifestyle, what is required, and then presenting kind of like the sacrifices that they're going to have to make and be like, okay, well, if you want to do that, this is probably a timeline that's going to be required, because if you've spent years doing things that don't align with this, now you have to spend years kind of undoing all of that, and then weighing out or explaining to them the reality and like what things in your life have to change if it's even realistic. That all the time. All the time. People are like, oh, well, I saw so-and-so do it, and like, what about this person? It's always the comparison, right? There is always pushback, and ultimately, like, when clients have a goal, and let's just say we start building or trying to build or reverse or increase their calories, and they're like, no, I want to diet. I just want to diet. I will give them the whole spill on, okay, this is where we are. If we want to diet, this is what's required, and you're probably going to get hungry and really emotional and sacrifices and like all those things. And I will ultimately like give them the decision and be like, you know what, if you want to do the diet, if you want to do this deficit or to lose weight, and you still want to like go after these goals, even though I'm telling you all like the dangers and the red flags that are going to pop up along the way, I will still do my best to guide you. But I'm going to be very honest and clear when things aren't working out or when we do need to pivot because things are going to get worse. And there have been a couple clients and they're like, nope, I still want to do it. And I'm like, okay, you know what? We're going to do it. And we do it. And then they're like, I don't want to do it. And I'm like, okay, now you know. I feel like a lot of people, and myself included, you kind of, even though somebody tells you like, don't touch that hot stove, you're like, but I still just want to touch that. Like you got to feel that for yourself, because everyone's obviously experience, that personal experience is going to be really different. And when you actually feel that, and then you're like, oh, okay. And now I have clients and they're like, I don't want to be skinny. Like, yeah, I still want to look really good, but I also really want to be really strong. I'm like, let's focus on that instead. Yeah.
And it's two diverging roads. Like, especially if you have a significant enough of a training age. You know, like if you just started working out yesterday, yeah, you could probably recomposition to some extent. But if you've been training for like 2, 3, 5 years,
yeah,
you're either building muscle
it's
or you're burning fat.
The longer
you're not doing
do
both
this,
at the same time. Sorry.
It's like in theory it should get easier because you know what to do, but it actually gets harder because of all these factors, and your body's like, nope, I know how to do this, I know how this works and stuff, and yeah, it's crazy, but it's fun.
So I just went through, obviously, how long was your for your competition?
Okay, so I started, I don't even know when I started actually dieting for it, because I was back with my coach in April, and then we did the first competition in September. So I would say July-ish I started dieting. So like 6 months of.
So just so people fucking understand, what does that look like on a daily basis, on a weekend basis, when the holidays come up? Like
so
tell everybody how
uncomfortable
this is.
Numbers, and there's so much like context involved. I was down to 1,000 calories constantly. I had no energy. I was doing, honestly, there were some days I was doing 3 hours of cardio. Now I want to explain that because that is insane. That my cardio was only steps. And I got up to an average of 22,000 steps a day. My daily average when I'm not in prep, because I love walking all the time, is about 12,000. So that's like high to begin with. So we had to keep increasing. The rate that I was walking at was so slow that I had my computer in front of me and I was sending audio messages and I could like type at the same time. So it was a very, very steady pace. Like it wasn't, my heart rate wasn't elevated or anything like that. So obviously we wanted to keep stress levels really low. So it was a very slow, consistent walk, but it took a lot of time to get these steps done. Plus an average of a 2-hour workout every day. I was spending about 3 to 5 hours a day doing exercise related things. And that was for 10 months, nonstop. I had no social life. My husband and I could not go out on dinner dates for well over 6 months, and he had to accept that. I was going to bed at 8 o'clock at night. Like I would put my pajamas on at 5 o'clock and I'm like, my day's over. Like it was exhausting. There were times where I would forget business things. Like I own a business and I have 3 coaches that work for me and I would forget things. And they're like, Courtney, you have to send this email. And I'm like, yeah, it was hard. There were times when I cried and I'm like, how am I going to do this? But it was done and it's very much not sustainable. And the nice thing is eventually I was in a good place where I could share a lot of this stuff. And I did speak up. I did podcasts and I talk about this. Basically my TikTok is prep and competition related stuff. So like rants and realities. And I had YouTube videos talking about kind of like the social responsibilities that I think I need to uphold or have as a competitor, but also as a coach, and like speaking up about this stuff, because you only see, especially with competitors, you're like, yeah, but like, look at my pretty bikini and like I won. So like, you don't see all the stuff that comes with it. And there is a lot of shit that comes with it. Like there is a lot of like baggage and stress and shit. And even though I didn't go through, I would say the most extremes that others have gone through, like I didn't have any binge eating issues and I was able to get up every day and literally get all the shit done that I needed to. But there's a lot of people that can't do that, and a lot of bad things happen with competing. So it was very extreme. I don't know if you had a question about that other than asking about what my day-to-day looked like.
No, but that opens up the floodgates on a lot of other stuff, because I think a lot of women are not mentally equipped to diet. I think a lot of women come from a disordered eating background. They have a poor relationship with food. They have a poor relationship with the scale. I'm sorry. I'm not going to recommend that I drop your calories, because you're going to binge eat. You're going to overeat. You're going to fuck yourself up hormonally. You're going to fuck yourself up psychologically.
That
Is it worth the
again, was
7
something
pounds?
I was really appreciative, especially like this year as I prepped. A lot of my clients saw everything that I was going through. Like obviously they saw it from a more personal standpoint, but they're like, I don't want to do that. Like whereas originally they'd come to me and they're like, yeah, I want to do it. And they're like, fuck that. Like there's so much shit involved. And I've had past clients come to me and they're like, I want to compete or I want to prep. And I'm like, you know what? Let's do a practice prep. Let's just pretend. So I'm going to put you through like 6 weeks of protocols and being like, you have to wake up every morning and you have to do posing practice and you have to do mobility and you have to get X amount of steps and follow your macros to a T, like everything. Did they do it? Yes. Was it very challenging after 6 weeks? Yes. Okay, now try and do that for 6 months and amplify all of that, because the more you keep going, the more specific things have to be.
I think when you're talking about general population, and that's mostly who I work with, that's mostly who I'm talking to, I think general population folks are consuming the wrong type of information, and that's where they're expectation of results is coming from, is they're coming from this lens of, well, I saw so and so do it, I saw so and so do it, and so that doesn't mean that your lifestyle and their lifestyle is at all the same. You don't know how much time they have to work out. You don't know what their training experience is. You don't know what their average day looks like. So if your average day is 5,000 steps, 3 meals out, high stress, poor sleep, no water consumption, you're starting from fucking scratch.
Like, that's not even an option.
Don't
one thing
talk to me about fat loss.
I do really emphasize is like, I created my lifestyle and I live in a place where like I have a perfect bubble to make all of this stuff happen. I choose when I work out. I choose when I work. I choose when I spend time with like my husband or my friends or whatever. I don't have like a 9-to-5 desk job. It's more than that, we know that. But I get to like pick and choose and set my schedule and set my lifestyle that makes my environment literally 100% conducive to my goals. And 90% of people, and I would say like 98% of my followers, don't have that option. Because they didn't build their lifestyle. It's not that like I was lucky and I won like the lottery with this. It's like I built this. I moved somewhere and I'm able to do this. I don't have a family with kids and other things to take care of. Like, it's very different.
And I say that to people all the time. Like, it's not that I can't relate to somebody with children because I don't have them. Like, I have 2 dogs. I have to worry about the dogs all the time. But my dogs are a lot easier than your kids. And I can spend most of my time thinking about this stuff and being really good at it. And I also started at 15.
Yeah.
Like, I've been lifting weights and eating a certain way for 23 years. You started 2 weeks ago. And you've neglected yourself for 15 years. That means that you have to now spend at least a third of that time reestablishing a baseline that then you can make decisions from. Because if you don't have solid ground to stand on, because you always have to think, inevitably everything will collapse. Somebody will get sick, you'll get laid off, your husband and you might get a divorce, your kid might fucking want to commit suicide, who knows what's going to happen. And you have to plan for the worst case scenario. So when you fall, are you falling to a good average, or are you falling to absolute mayhem and chaos? And most people are going to fall to a very suboptimal routine. Whereas when you and I fall, we're not falling that foundation.
And it's funny, I was talking to one of my clients who just joined in on this conversation, talking about like setting a solid foundation, because the habits that we think or we want to think or believe are set, they're not actually set. So getting like those foundational elements and being like, okay, this is your lifestyle. This is what we can build on top of this, and this is not an option. I'm sorry, but like you can build a castle on concrete, but you can't build a castle on top of water. Like, it's just not going to work. So where is your lifestyle, and then what are the foundational elements or the habits that we can build on top of that are actually going to work for your lifestyle and hopefully align with your goals.
So now that you're, let's talk about the coming out of the deficit back into a normal routine. What are some bits of advice you can give folks? Let's say they've spent some time in a fat loss phase and they're relatively happy with how they look and how they feel, and now they're trying to reacclimate into normal living. What are some pieces of advice you can give those people so that they don't have a tough rebound?
Listen to your coach. That is like the best thing ever. Listen to your coach. I will say we as in like my clients, often get caught up in, oh, I look really good, I just want to hang out here. Like, it's okay. It's like, well, the reason why we're coming out of this deficit now is because we're starting to see, let's just call it red flags or negative biofeedback or whatever. We don't want to heighten those. The longer we stay there, the more those are going to amplify and get bigger. And we don't want that. What I do with my clients is I will have this conversation well before these red flags come up and being like, okay, we are going to go into a deficit now. this is this is what we need to look for and what we are going to see, and that is going to be our cue to get out of this phase or consider getting out of it. And we're going to do it slowly. A lot of people will instantly, and a lot of coaches do this, they'll kind of instantly be like, okay, this is your deficit, now we're going to increase by X amount, maybe it's a percentage or a ratio, and then that's going to be your maintenance, and we're just going to hang out there. Like, there, you can do like a slower one, or you can do like a quicker reverse, right? Like, everything's different. With my clients, I kind of like to assess where they are in the deficit, what kind of markers or flags are coming up, and then be like, okay, now let's see kind of where we can go. What I really like to do with my clients is encourage another goal. Encourage another goal that they like. So I'm not like, we're not going to work on a strength training goal, like a super heavy deadlift if they're not doing resistance training or if they don't really care for it, right? Like, I want to do something that gets them really, really excited and be like, let's just focus on something else. Let's focus on whatever, reintroducing new foods. And I personally like to do it slower than I would say most people. I've experienced the quick rebound and the slow. So for me, for example, now, again, this is like an extreme situation, but I do like to use this as like a contrast. So for me, I've literally been on a meal plan for 6 months. I've been eating the exact same food for weeks and weeks and weeks and months. I think, in my opinion, the most stressful and stupid thing I can do is all of a sudden be like, I can go back to flexible dieting. I don't have to have a meal plan. I'm just going to eat tacos and whatever I want, and life's going to be good. My body's just going to figure it all out. What I have done is I literally just kept everything the same. Like, the 1 and 2 weeks after competing, I'm like, it's just easier. One, I don't have to think about anything. And then it's just less stress and less time consuming, and I like all the food that I'm eating. So then I would just be like, okay, this week I'm going to introduce 2 new foods. That's it. I'm going to increase calories a little bit, so increase consumption, increase 2 new foods. I like to do that with my clients as well, so doing like a much slower and safer approach. And I like to go with the pace that they are comfortable and confident at. Having clear communication with the coach or with me or with my client, I think is so important. So as you transition out of a deficit, it's really important to focus on your health markers. So whatever negative symptoms or signs or whatever are coming up, we want to be tracking those and making sure that they're not either where they are or they're not being amplified even more, and really have such good communication with your support system, whether it is your coach or your team or whoever it is.
How much value and importance do you place on
what was the
accurate
question?
reporting of food consumption? How much emphasis do you put on accurate reporting of food? Like, so people are logging their food,
coming out of a
100%
deficit?
honest with it, good, bad, or indifferent. Out of a deficit, it doesn't matter what phase, just in general, just because I think a lot of people have this idea where if I have a bad day,
I tell my clients that any data is good
but if I have a good day, I want to log in.
And if they overeat, and as long as mentally they're in a good place to do so, and they say like, okay, like I overate last night, I didn't track it. If they're in a good position to do so, I will encourage them to kind of go back and be like, can you log that? One, that's going to bring some awareness, and it's going to give us a little bit of data. If they're mentally not in a good place for it, I'll be like, you know what? Water under the bridge, it's in the past, there's nothing we can do about it, let's move on. But what is the term? It's like out of mind, out of sight, or whatever. It's like, if you don't see it, it doesn't happen. You can't keep doing that, because that just turns into a habit. So if the client, again, is in a good state of mind to be able to do so, let's bring some awareness to it. Let's kind of see what happens. And when they're able to visually see that, not like, oh my God, I overate, but like, was it necessary or did you have to do it? Again, I have to approach, and I know you do too, each client is very different. So some triggers to some client might be different from others, but with my clients, we do flexible dieting. So I'm never like, you have to be exact to your macros, but the more specific our goals are, the more specific our habits and our actions need to be. So there's a time and a place to be like, yeah, you do need to be more accurate. And the little like sprays of cooking spray or whatever here and there, like little things like that, they do add up, but it's more like to bring awareness and understanding to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think if your goal is like I want to lose fat, I came to you with the goal of losing fat. Well, then give me the fucking information I need to help you. Like if you're tracking 50 or 60% of your food and we don't know what the other 40% is,
Yeah.
are you eating 1,500 calories or are you eating 3,200 calories? I don't know. So how am I as a coach supposed to make decisions purely based? Like if the
Could
scale
be
goes
food.
up and you're a female, could be water.
Yeah.
It could be food. It could be your cycle. It could be carbohydrate. It could be inflammation from working out. It could be so many things. So if you're going to go through the process of actually working with a professional, then in my opinion, give them as much information as you can give them so they can do the best possible job for you, as opposed to them just being like, well, we talked about this last week and we talked about this the week before and we talked about it the week before. And how do
I've
you want
been
to pay
very honest
somebody
with
just to
clients
remind
before.
you to
Like,
not
why are you paying
fuck
me?
up?
Why are you paying me X amount every month for me to either repeat myself or for you not to give me the data? Like, I've been very honest with clients. I will never do that. What I also like to do is kind of encourage the clients to, in a positive way, be obsessive with their tracking and finding the extreme end of the spectrum. We know where they are in their starting point. That's kind of the other end of the spectrum. Let's get to the other end. Let's find the extreme, and then let's find the balance in the middle, because that balance is going to look different for everyone. But we don't want clients to be tracking forever or to be having a coach forever. But let's find out what that top end looks like, and then let's the middle, so that maybe if you don't need to track on the weekends or you don't need to track everything, at least we have that understanding of how much influence that has on body composition or goals or habits. Yes. Yes, we know.
And then you have a reason for how you feel and how you look, as opposed, yeah, as opposed to like I have no fucking
Fuck,
clue. I don't
when
get
clients
it. Like,
are like,
you
I don't know
treated
what
yourself like
happened.
an
Like,
amusement
but you
park.
didn't
That's
give me
why.
any data, so how am I supposed to know what happened? Like, you need to tell me what happened.
Yeah. I think we're living in a very sensitive time, and I get it. Like, there's a million disorders, and everybody has a mental problem, and everybody's diagnosed with something, which I'm not going to invalidate. But where's the personal responsibility and the accountability? Where is the grit and the desire to be slightly uncomfortable? Because we're missing that as a population. And if I don't say it and you don't say it, then behaviors are going to go
Absolutely.
without consequence. And I think everything has a consequence. And as long as you're an informed buyer of that consequence, I'm okay with it. If you decided to have a pizza and a burger and 15 beers and chicken wings and a cake last night, great. You chose to do it. But then, right, but then don't wake up on Monday morning and then tell me like I don't
How, I have
understand.
a question for
Working.
you. How tough are you on your clients? What is your client demographic like?
Not
Your
not
client
tough enough.
demographic, like, do you have mostly men, women?
What's my what?
What's the average? Nutrition and training?
95% female, okay. 35 to 65.
I don't even know what kind of spectrum we'll put this on, but how hard do you feel like you can push your clients? Yeah.
Certain ones, very hard. Other people, like me inside of a glass shop. Like if I say something too loud, that's yelling. But I also think that the people that gravitate towards me and my coaching know what they're getting before they even start. Like I have no patience for people that don't at least do things with intention. Like my whole thing is I don't want to be a coach for you forever. I want to teach you what it's going to take for you to learn this stuff forever. Then you go off on your own and never hire a coach again. Like if you're having to rely, like there's difference. I want to make it to the point where like if you want to coach, it's purely because of accountability, not because you don't know what you're doing, not because you're not confident, but just because you want to be responsible to somebody else. And having a professional in your corner amplifies your ability to execute, which is great. I mean, So there's top end
I
executives
have
that have
coaches.
mentors and business
Absolutely.
coaches, and they
Yeah,
make
it
20
helps.
million bucks a year, but they want more. Right. I mean, I think I'm one of the rare coaches that doesn't have a coach, and it's purely because right now at the stage of my life, I don't have any real specific goals, and I don't give a fuck.
I only
So
have
I don't need a
coaches
coach to tell me
for
that I don't give a fuck.
bodybuilding because that is not my expertise. But when I'm doing like my own powerlifting or flexible dieting, like I've gone years doing my own body recomposition and stuff like that. But obviously when it comes to a specific goal, I don't know how to properly execute it. So that's why I hire a professional. But very similar to you, I have clients that I can push very hard, and like I have to almost take a step back and be like, is that a bit too much? Like, am I actually allowed to say that? And there are some clients where, yeah, if I put an exclamation mark instead of a period, there's emotions. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to.
You're yelling. Listen, I think at the end of the day, we're coming from a good place. Like, we're not doing this because we're trying to disrespect you or demean you. We're just telling you the truth that you haven't wanted to see in a very long time on your own.
Yeah,
and there's nothing wrong with constructive criticism.
Honestly, if I didn't care about my clients, I would just be like, yep, you're doing a good job. Great work.
Yeah.
See you next week. Here's your plan. I would not ask them questions. I would not ask them how they're feeling or what did they do or how can I help. Like, I wouldn't open up those opportunities, you know, and the same thing for you. It's because like we actually care. And I do have to emphasize that with my clients. Be like, I'm giving you this tough love because I actually care. I'm saying this because you need to hear it because you're in your own fucking way. And it's not, unfortunately, the things that we don't want to hear are usually the things that we have to hear. Someone's got to say
it. Yeah, totally. And that's why I gravitate towards you, and I think you're one of the better coaches out there. It's because you do things for yourself your own way, and it's not how you coach other people because you understand the difference. You're very in tune with the psychological piece of this stuff. You're very in tune with the physiological piece of this stuff. So you're coming at it from every appropriate angle, and that's why I wanted you to
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you for
How long did that
sharing
take
your
us
30 minutes with me.
to set up? Like 2 months? More than that? Yeah, no, that was like 6 months.
2 years?
Because I was living in the
4 years?
So I was like before August. Now we know how easy it is to do this.
Well, now we know.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Exactly. Well, thank you, Courtney. I appreciate it. I will invite you as a collaborator so it can live on your page as well.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Okay.
Bye.